My name is Jeremy Greenbaum. I'm from the Wix marketing team. Welcome to our live Q&A for new Canvas behaviors and workflows. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that webinar, you can find it along with tons more info and learning resources in our Academy library. So we will post that link in the chat for you at the end of the webinar. We are excited to introduce you to the world of Wix Studio, the web creation platform built for agencies and freelancers, where you can deliver exceptional, high-quality sites in the most efficient way. The platform was designed with you in mind, covering the many layers of creating and managing multiple projects while maintaining quality. In a few moments, you'll meet our Wix Studio expert, the incredible Avishai Harsinai, who is one of our Wix partners for the past 3 years and the owner of Sorbet Agency. But there are a few things I have to run through before we jump in. Many of you have already found the chat box feature, which is amazing. It's a great way to interact with each other and kind of share your thoughts as we go. I love the chat that's already going on. I would love to see more. Love how global this audience is. Wix uniting people from around the world. But if you want any questions answered by Avishai or any of the other Wix Studio experts that we'll have on this call, you'll want to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So just make sure that you're typing your question into the Q&A box and not the chat box so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Also, if you haven't already, please join our Wix Studio forum. We've got UX people, designers, project managers, product managers. They're just actively answering questions at your whim. Lots of lively creation discussions and sharing there. So sign up to join those conversations. And we will post that in the chat as well, that link. Lastly, this session is being recorded and it will be sent to you soon for you to watch back and recap if you need. So enough talking for me. Let's welcome our Wix Studio expert, Avishai.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today. Let's dive right in. In the past 2 webinars that I created, we created interactive one-pager for a coffee brand. Let's quickly go over it. And before we start with your question, I would like to recap what we did in the last 2 sessions. So we created this one-pager interactive page for a coffee brand using a repeater and the new super grid. We created this interactive box, this spinning element. We created this interactive map and this interactive accordion layouter. And this interesting 2 layers design and this moving element. So let's quickly recap on what we did in the last session. We learned about the stacking option that basically prevents from element to overlap with each other. We learned that we can create
Yeah. Would you just make sure that you're sharing your screen?
You're not seeing my screen?
No, we can't. We're not seeing it right now.
Thank you. So let's double check.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. So you see my screen. Great.
Well, I see your screen. Yep. Here we go.
Right. So.
Thanks.
All right, so let's quickly go over what we did. So this is basically the one-pager that we built in the last 2 webinars. We created a coffee brand one-pager, an interactive page, using the new super grid option, using new features of the repeater. We used hover interaction to create this interaction box and this spinning element. We used hover interaction to create this hover interaction on the map, the location accordion, and this two-layer section. Now let's quickly recap what we covered in the last two webinars. So we learned about the stack option, where we can stack elements so they won't overlap each other. We learned that there is a new feature on Wix Studio of horizontal stack, so we can stack elements horizontally. We learned that we can control the stack options using the inspector tool. We can align them to the left, to the middle. We can create a unified spacing between all the elements. And we created padding to this stack, so it will maintain its responsive behavior across all breakpoints. So we've also learned how to use the supergrid. We learned that we can create gaps in between two cells, between all the cells. And we can control them here in the inspector panel. We learned that we can also switch between cells in an easy way. I'm standing on a cell, clicking on Shift, and another cell, and clicking Swap. And with the click of a button, I can swap the elements. And since we created these cells using the best practice workflows, you can see that it's responsive across all breakpoints. We also learned that, let's go back to the original design, that we can change the layout of the section by clicking this option. We switched from columns, from collage actually, to rows. Let's move on. We created this section using the repeater option, and we learned that in order for all the elements to be perfectly aligned on all breakpoints, we need to use the padding option. So every element that we placed is between two pads, or even 4 pads across all of the sides. So that's the best way to add a title to a section. And what we did here, actually, we used one section, divided into 2 cells, when one cell is actually the title, and the bottom one is where we have the interactive content in the repeater. So let's move on to other breakpoints. And as you can see, it maintains its responsive behavior across all breakpoints. Moving on, we learn how to use the hover interaction on the map and on those elements. And here we used an already made layout tool called accordion. And as you can see, it's fully responsive. And we created this this section using the new features of the supergrid. What we did actually here, in order to create this logo, we used the corners option, and we actually really bend the corner of the supergrid. So we will have this nice layout. On the background, we added a video. And at the bottom, we used a loop interaction. By the way, we can edit it. So let's learn how to do it. I can edit it. I can change a different interaction setup, or adjust the already selected interaction. For example, make it move faster for 10 seconds, for example. And instead of from the right, from left to right. Let's see how it works. So now it moves slower and moved on the other side. So this is like a really quick recap of what we covered in the last 2 webinars. You are more than welcome to review them. You can see them in the Academy, or check them on YouTube. So now, Jeremy, I'm ready for a question from the crowd. Hit me.
Perfect. Okay. So what do you do to get ready in the editor before you begin working on a project?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, what I'm doing at the beginning of every project, I'm preparing my canvas for work without interruption, for for a fluent work. So I won't need to add the colors or everything in while I'm working. So actually, there are two basic workflows when I'm starting to work on a design. The first option is that I'm working with an already made design, a brand book of a well-established brand. So I take all the fonts and all the colors. I'm going to the site typography and styles, and I'm adding all the relevant fonts, adding the colors to the main colors of the backgrounds of the text will go here. The action colors for the buttons, etc., will go here. And it's useful to do it that way and not add them here because when you use some already made tools of Wix, like Wix stores or Wix, there are, as you know, there are already made tools here, like Wix blog, Wix store, booking, events, and they are pulling all the design setup from those two parts. So before I start to work, I add all the relevant colors, adding all the relevant fonts and sizes to my headers and to my paragraphs, and then I can start my work with no hassle. So this is the first thing I do.
Great. Right. I always think it's so important because you can get kind of stuck in that, like, oh God, I don't like the paralysis of starting. So that's really helpful to hear kind of how you.
And by the way, there is a new feature in Wix Studio called blocks. So other users, other Wix partners can create different blogs and sections that you can purchase. And the default of those blocks is to pull all the designs, the fonts, colors, etc., from the already made typography and site styles. So it's very important if you want to collaborate with other partners and use blocks. It will make your life easy. You won't need to add it and adjust it after you will apply the new block to your site. It will automatically pull all the data from your site typography and styles.
That's super helpful. Okay, next question. Can you add multiple interactions to the same element?
Yes, absolutely. We can do that. Let's check what we have already created. We created this interactive map using hover interaction. Now let's try to add more interaction to the same elements. So we applied a hover interaction to this icon. Now we can add, let's add, for example, a click interaction. In order to do it, I will quickly add text. Let's resize it a bit and add a background. And I will add it to the map. And the interaction that I would like to add is when you click this icon, you will have the name of the country and additional information. So how do I do it? I'm selecting this icon, going to the interaction tab, going to click interaction, and adding a new interaction, appear interaction. The default is that the interaction will apply to the item itself. But in this case, I would like it to apply to the text, to this text. As you can see, it's highlighted here. So I'm selecting this text and adding appear interaction. Now let's check what we did. When I'm hovering, I see the information appears on the right, but when I click the same element, I see this information that I just created. Now let's go wild and add another interaction to the same element. For example, I can add, let's use another hover interaction, and I can select the skew option. So I'm selecting this element. I want to apply it on the element itself, selecting skew. And now I actually have 3 interactions on the same element. One is that movement. It's very mild, but you can see it. And when I click it, I see the information. So to answer your question, yes, you can apply as many interactions as you want to the same element.
Very fancy. Thank you for that great answer. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about the new AI features?
Yes, we learned in the past 2 webinars that we can use generative AI to add content to our website. And the way to do it is to stand on a paragraph or a title, click on the Create AI text, and then add some information like we did last time, and select the topic, welcome, or project, and then add some keywords that you want the AI tool to use. So this is one new AI feature. We've also learned that we can generate images by clicking Create AI Image. We can enter our prompt, select the style we want, photo, a realistic image, or a 3D, or illustration, etc. And then the AI will generate an image for us. There is a new way, a new feature, a new AI feature of a responsive behavior, and I will show you how it works. I will quickly add some elements to this new section that we are building. I will add an image. Let's make it a bit bigger. I will quickly add a title. I won't waste our time on actually adding the content. As you can see, I'm not creating stacks. I'm just adding the elements to the section. I will add a paragraph. And a button. All right. So now we have those 4 elements, basic element for a section, and then I have this new option, responsive AI behavior. Let's click it. As you can see, it's still on beta mode, but let's see what it generates. Basically what it does, it will maintain the desktop view and will generate a responsive section for tablet and mobile. Click in the button. And basically the way this AI tool works, it learned and scanned hundreds of thousands of websites and learned their basic behavior across different breakpoints like tablet, desktop, and mobile. And it created responsive behavior based on of what the AI algorithm learned. So this is what happened here behind the scenes. And let's see what the system created for us. So before I can apply the design, but before that, I would like to see what happens. So this is the desktop view. As you can see, it really kept the same design that I created. Moving to tablet, I can see that we have a more roughly responsive behavior. And when I'm moving to mobile, I can see that all the alignment from a horizontal view, it changed to a more mobile view, like all the elements are stacked one below the other to have more vertical view. So it looks okay. Let's apply this design. And let's examine together what the AI created. It actually used the supergrid and divided this section into 2 different cells. That's a wise decision. When we are moving to tablet view, we see it's roughly the same. I can make some minor adjustments. Let's align this to the center of the cell. And when I'm going to mobile, I can see that everything sits in a organized fashion. I can center this button, and in we go. We have a responsive section that was built only once on desktop. Of course, we can create more adjustment and really fine-tune it into to a more complete level of design. But right off the bat, we've got like 80% of the work done for us. And this is just the beginning. Imagine how it will work a year or 2 years from now. So this is another feature besides the content creation, the image creation. We also have an AI tool that will help us create responsive sections across all breakpoints.
Very cool. Next question. What is the CSS grid and how does it differ from the other super grid?
Well, we are now familiar with the super grid, and I will show you what is the CSS grid. For those of you who are familiar with Editor X, it will look familiar, but the key difference between CSS grid and the super grid is that the super grid is will help you create your sections quickly. It will fit most of the mainstream design requirements. But if you want this extra control over your designs, you might need to use the CSS, because the CSS will enable you to have full control of every part of your section. So what I'm doing right now is I'm creating a section. And this is a super grid, all right? So we have those 3 rows in this section, and let's examine their behavior. This is how it looks on tablet. This is how it looks on mobile, and this is how it looks on tablet, and this is how it looks on mobile. As you can see, it's scaled proportionally, meaning that all those cells maintaining the same ratio in relationship to the section. But for example, if I would like this cell to keep to have a different behavior, for example, to have a fixed size, I will need to move to the advanced CSS mode. And the way to do it is to select the section and switch to advanced CSI grid. And basically, before we make this switch, I will explain in a bit technical way what is the super grid. The super grid is basically a flex box that within every cell of this flex box, we have a container that is filling it. So when I'm switching to the advanced mode, I will be able to see it. By the way, I have this notice saying that once I'm switching to the CSS grid, I won't be able to go back to the super grid. So I will go ahead and click it and approve it, and I'm switching to the CSS grid. And what we can see is that we have those grid lines, and between every grid line, we have a container. So, for example, if I want, I can delete this container. And now we will have this section and those 2 rows that are filled with a container. And when I'm speaking about have more control of my designs, for example, I have a design that will require for this row to keep not a proportionate size, but a fixed size. And the way to do it is to go here. This is where I can control the properties of this row, and I can select pixels and set it up to 250 pixels. Now let's examine the behavior. When I'm switching to tablet, I can see that it maintained the 250 pixels height. Same thing on mobile, while the other 2 sections kept their proportionate ratio. I can do more things. I can, for example, select different types of measurements. For example, instead of pixels, I can select viewport height, or based on or select the height based on percentage or friction. Let's go with viewport height, for example, and I can set it up for 20 units of viewport height. Another cool feature that I can do, I can add an element, for example, an image, place it in this container within this grid, and set this row to have a maximum height based on the element in it. And the way to do it is to give it, for example, to leave the minimum height on auto, and the maximum height will be max content. So the size of this element will always be attached to the size of the container. So if I'm increasing the size of this element, for example, for 200 pixels, you can see that on all breakpoints, this row will always be at the maximum height of this content. And while we are playing with this image, we can also have more flexibility. For those of you who are familiar with Editor X, I can switch to the advanced sizing and have all the properties of controlling this element like on Editor X. For example, set its height to viewport height units. For example, 20 viewport height units. And as you can see, this part of the section will always keep the max content behavior that we set it up. So to summarize it, the supergrid will enable you to create responsive design, will address all the mainstream design needs that you have. But if you want to have full control or want to have like unique design concepts, you can switch to the advanced CSS grid and play along and control different elements of the section. If you want, you can also add another column and go really wild with your design. So this is a more advanced feature, but it will allow you to create a more complicated design and have full control over your designs.
Great explanation. That, unfortunately, is all the time we have today for questions. But if you have any questions that we haven't answered, feel free to go to the new Wix Studio forum and join the Wix Studio Discord community, and you can ask your questions there. Our product managers will be more than happy to help you out. And of course, our academy is always there as a resource for you as well. So also, if you have any feedback, please let us know. I see that the feedback form is already sent in the chat. Like we said before, there will be a recording for you to refer back to that we'll email to you shortly. You have been a great crowd, and we hope to see you all again at one of our other seminars or webinars. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Goodbye, everyone.